Welcome to the Date Forever podcast. Keep your relationship fueled up with strategies discovered by couples and experts. Because at Fuel Collective, we believe better relationships will equal a better world. You are about to discover specific insights and tools that cost little or nothing to implement to help you date forever. And now, here are your hosts, a couple who always have a half-packed suitcase and a date night in the calendar, Sammy and Nathan Yeager.
Hello and welcome to Date Forever. In this week's episode, we're chatting about how getting pregnant after 3 weeks of dating has turned into a 21-year-long relationship, how our family history and upbringing plays into our relationships, and navigating the hardships and highlights of a long-term relationship. But before we get into that, what's been fueling you up this week, Sammy?
This last week, I got to see quite a few of my girlfriends.
Yeah.
IRL. In real life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was super nice. A couple of really extended coffee, brunch, walk, talk, catch-ups with a few of my most favourite girls in the world. Yeah, it was really nice. And yeah, I feel like friendship and relationships, we've had to kind of adapt how we do that with our wider network over the last global pandemic duration.
Yeah.
So it was just really nice to get back to some things that felt a bit more normal. Yeah, and I don't live in the same state as my family, and I don't have a very big immediate family either. So my friendships are really important to me, and they are the family that I choose.
Yeah.
So it was really nice to spend a little bit of time catching up and hearing about their lives, sharing a little bit about our life, my life, and intentions for 2022.
Yeah, amazing.
What about you? What fueled you up this week?
Mine was kind of ticking off a little goal that we set as we moved into our new place. And that was swimming the full length of the beach. So we'd kind of set it as a bit of a almost tongue-in-cheek or something when we first got there. We're like, let's just set ourselves a goal to be able to swim the full length of the beach. And if you don't know me, I'm not a great swimmer. I'm not a super confident swimmer, at least anyway.
You sink a lot easier than you float, even in the ocean.
Yeah, that's it. So I thought it was going to be a bit of a stretch goal, but I managed to smash it. Maybe that's just the quantity of time that we've been spending at the beach. I don't know, but...
yeah, that was a cool goal that we did together, hey?
Yeah, it was.
And it was like this thing that we just off the cuff said one day, let's work towards swimming end to end. And then to find out that it's almost half a K long.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I didn't know.
But tick that box.
Achievement unlocked.
That's it. What's next though?
Double it.
But now here's this week's guest.
Today we've got Victoria Edmond joining us. After discovering Steiner education with pregnant with her first child, Victoria fell in love with this heart-centered approach to education and care for children. Combining this with her love of sharing knowledge, she became qualified in early years education. After working in mainstream centres, Victoria was inspired to create her own family daycare business where she could make heart-centered relationships the priority. This has grown to 40 educators across Queensland and New South Wales. Together with her team, she also launched Big Hearted Education. Here you can find online courses and free resources for educators looking for high-quality products. She is gathering a wonderful community of like-minded educators who want to offer more to children because they feel they deserve an experience that is enriching and sets them up for life. Welcome to the show, Victoria.
Thank you very much.
Hey, what that intro doesn't tell us, and you're on a podcast about relationships, is that you've been married for quite some time.
I wouldn't say married. I would say de facto because, we didn't get hitched. We don't even really know why. We just never did it. It just didn't feel like we had to. So we are actually this weekend 21 years in relationship. Yeah. So, it's been a long time, half my life. Literally half my life.
I want to go into some of this heartfelt education thing, but let's maybe start with the relationship. We know that you've overcome some pretty big hurdles to be together here after 21 years. Can you tell us a little bit about your love story?
I surely can. I have to roll back the camera 21 years ago. I moved up to the Sunshine Coast from the Gold Coast. I needed to get away from all the people I was hanging out with because I was doing naughty things and just being a typical teenager back then. But, I had no direction or anything like that. So I moved up to the Sunshine Coast and I thought it would be a really great idea because I would meet all these new people. And I did meet a really cool group of visual arts students and uni kids and all this sort of stuff. And I was working up there, and I was walking along the beach one day, and it just hit me. And I have these moments in my life, and I call them God bolt moments. And just this knowledge came into my head. And I was walking on the beach with my best friend, Veronica, and I was like, oh my goodness, it was so full on that I actually thought someone had said it. And I turned to her and I was like, did you hear that? She's like, what? And I was like, the one is coming, like the one. And at that stage, I didn't know if it was a girl or a boy. But I was like, like the one I'm going to spend, if not the rest of my life, the bulk of my life with is coming. And from that minute on, I went completely celibate. I just was like, no, I don't want to get confused or anything. So I wrote this list of all the things that I wanted in a partner. And he had to be really good with money, financially savvy. He had to be able to be practical and build things with his hands. He had to be intelligent and kind and warm-hearted and loving and funny and adventurous and all these things. And it was about 12 months after that was my 21st birthday. And I just moved back into Sunshine Beach, and I had this amazing apartment for $135 a week. It was incredible. Right on the beach.
Living a dream.
Oh, it was amazing. 2 stories, 3 bedrooms. It was incredible. And this view straight out over the water. Anyway, there was this really cool bar just up the road, and I went over there that first week that I moved in, and I saw this guy there, and we were like chatting to each other, and I was like, whoa, I got a really different feeling about this man. Then the next week was my 21st birthday, and then the week after I was back at that bar, and he was there again, and we just talked all night long, and then he walked me home all of across the road. And I invited him up for coffee, and 3 weeks later we were pregnant. I had no idea.
So I'm guessing that coffee wasn't coffee.
No. What coffee ever is? So, 3 weeks later, but we didn't find out until I was already 2 months pregnant. So we were like sort of less than 3 months into a relationship, and it was like, oh, whoa, that's pretty hectic. And at first, like, I didn't know what I wanted to do because I had this knowledge that this person was coming, but that happened really quickly. And I couldn't even finish one whole thought in my head at that stage. I was so overwhelmed. And I just remember having a conversation with him one night and just being like, hang on, have either one of us thought that this actually could be the best thing that could have ever happened to us and not the worst? Mm. And I, from that moment, made that decision, look, whether you want to be a part of this or not, I'm actually going to have this baby because I can't do the alternatives. It's just, I just can't do it. And I want you to be part of it, but I also don't want you to feel pressured into being here. And so we just continued on. And continued on and continued on. And then 2.5 years later, we had our daughter. So we had Cooper first, and then we had our daughter Yolanda 2.5 years later. And it took 6 months to fall pregnant with her. So we finally got the
Wasn't
chance.
just a single
not
coffee.
Quite 3 weeks.
No, there's no coffee involved in that one.
So, Victoria, that is intense because, like, to have that, some people call those like light bulb moments or epiphany or just a download of the one is coming, and then to go, all right, I'm going to be celibate, and then invite some guy who you had a feeling about at the bar over for coffee. Like, did you know? You must have known.
I had no idea. Like, I don't know. It just sort of all just felt right. It just, it was divinely led. That's the only way I can recall it. And I mean, I look back now and I go far out because there's so many similarities. Like, his parents, and this is what I wanted to sort of talk about tonight too, was those generational patterns of behaviour that come into and infiltrate our entire existence. So it's really important to be aware that, well, for us, for Brian, his parents were only together for 3 months before they fell pregnant, and they stayed together for 16 years. And then my parents, there's a 12-year age gap between my mum and my dad, and there is between Brian and I. So,
Wow.
yeah, and my parents divorced when I was 5. So all the way along our relationship, I've kind of had this thing in my head, and I don't know if other people do it, but I definitely do it. I got to that first 5 years and I went, whoa, well, we've outlived that one. Like, that mistake can't be made. And then we got to 16 years and it was like, well, we've outlived that one too. You know, we've broken these generational curses. So, yeah, I didn't really, when I met Brian, I didn't really, just all flowed and nothing, we didn't have to try for anything, clearly. We're overachievers. But for the first, I don't know, it might have been 5 or 6 years, we didn't even have an argument, not a single disagreement. We were just on the same page, in the same book. But as we've gone on, we're in the same book, but we're sometimes we're in complete different chapters sometimes.
That's so opposite to Nathan and I. I reckon we did most of our fighting and like navigating some awkward stuff in the first 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, probably 12
was,
months.
I reckon, the most turbulent time. And somehow we made it through that, and we've set an incredible foundation for, well, we've been together like 12, 13, I don't know.
13, almost 14 years.
Now.
Yeah.
So complete opposite. But, yeah, I want to ask about that age difference. Has that been something difficult to navigate, or has it ebbed and flowed, or?
It's showing up more now because he's 54 now and I just turned 42. So for me, like, women, they hit their stride differently to when men do, hormonally and that sort of stuff. Like, he's currently, you know, got that drop in testosterone and midlife crisis-y and all that sort of stuff, whereas I'm like hitting all these goals in my businesses. And I'm at the gym now, and like, I've just had this like awakening. I feel like I just keep another layer and another layer and another layer. And sometimes it can feel like he's getting ready to slow down and become grandpa. And I'm like, life is amazing. Let's go and do this and that. And so that takes a little bit and the older we get, the more that's going to become more prevalent. And I keep saying to him that I'll shove him off into a retirement home and I'll go and live my life.
True love.
Totally. I'll drop him off. No worries. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, and he'll probably be ready. If he's nice and slow, he can play a couple of games of bocce and you'll pop in for date night.
A little bit of lawn bowls. And, yeah.
Date night with all the soft food. Be great.
Hey, so maybe this is a big question. There's probably more than one thing. But what would you say are the handful of things that have helped you sustain and grow and maintain a healthy, happy, thriving relationship?
The first thing is we started out like really great mates. We just got along, like everything, like down to how I want to breastfeed my babies. And he was like, oh my God, I'm so surprised that you would say that at, you know, being a young person, you know, and not seeing the value in that. And I was like, 100%, mate. And then I was like, right, we're totally going vegetarian. You know, the baby shouldn't have meat, you know, blah, 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 like all these weird things. And he was just like, wow, yeah, you know, and just the whole way along. So being friends was so important to our relationship. The next thing was that we parent very similarly. So we were thrust within 10 months of being together. We had a baby. Like, so our parenting style was luckily quite similar. And he was happy to let me do a lot of the research with that sort of stuff and was happy for me to just go, well, this is like, we're in it together, but you're holding this at the moment. So I'll just do what goes for you and what works best. And it just happened to be that they were decisions that he would make too. And so being friends is really, really important. Having those similar values and philosophies around child rearing, if you're going to be having children, is super important to be aware of and being on the same page. The next thing that we did, we have been active for the last 16 years doing this work called network chiropractic. So it's a kind of chiropractic work, but it doesn't crack. So it works with your body's innate wisdom. But what it actually does is it actually helps you to offload all of the tension in your body. So when you don't have the tension, you don't have those physical aches and pains, they actually come from emotional triggers. So when you're offloading those emotional triggers, it means that you're more able to own your own shit and be present with your own shit. But because we did this together, we were able to talk about those things together. And Brian's not the best communicator. Yeah, he's just a blokey bloke. He's a mechanic, and he works in a dirty workshop with dirty mouthed men all day long, and they don't talk about anything. He's 54, so he's quite old school, and men don't talk, in that thing. So having the network Cairo, this stuff comes up and you can't help it but process it. So the two of us going, and our children would go along too. So us being in that all together was so beneficial for our family and ourselves personally.
How did you discover this? Like, where did this
we went to a Steiner school, and when Cooper was 2.5, we moved down and we had Yolanda not long after that. And we'd always gone to this playgroup, and there was this lovely couple, Vinny and Shelley, there. And Shelley's actually up on the Sunshine Coast now in Peregian Beach. If anybody wants to visit her, you can get in touch with me and I'll give you her details. But there are literally network Kairos all around Australia. They're absolutely phenomenal. So Vinny and Shelley were part of that playgroup as well. And I remember having sciatica one day, and Vinny was like, look, just go down and see Shelley. And I got on that table, and I don't know what she did to me, but all they do is they touch you no more than this on different parts of your spine. That's it. And I remember getting off the table and I couldn't move, I was stuck. And I was like, what have you done? What have you done to me? And she came over and she's like, wow, the heat is coming out of your spine 3 feet. That's insane. She did one more contact and the tears, just this release of pent-up emotion, and it was just full on. That single body of work has changed the trajectory of my life personally, and I highly recommend it. It's not going to be for everybody, but if you really want to look at addressing how your body and your mind work together and the power of that working together, oh, mate, it is the best thing you could possibly do. So,
what a testimonial.
Yeah. It's brilliant. Yeah, Shelley Axford, she brought Network Chiropractic to Australia. So, yeah, she's got an incredible story too. So, yeah. But, so doing that and then keeping us together, definitely time alone, time away. I need to have my girl time. Brian's a hermit. He's Cancerian, so he just loves to stay at home and just potter around. His family. That's his thing. He's happy doing that. Whereas me being a Leo, I love getting out there and being social, but then I love being home too. So, yeah, we do lots. He does the gardens. I'm just looking out at the gardens now. They're amazing what he's done in the last 12 months here. So
those sound like some really beautiful practices that you've layered on top of each other to make a really beautiful relationship.
Yeah, I think so. We're not extravagant people. Sometimes I have to rein myself in because if I choose something in a shop, I'll be like, oh, that, and I'll go and look. It's the most expensive thing in the shop. Whereas, Brian is like, oh, I'll just make it. He's so clever like that. But we come at opposite ends, but it just seems to work so well. And it's not an extravagant lifestyle at all, but it's definitely one that's solid and consistent. Yeah.
So, Victoria, you mentioned about people's past and also generational kind of influences on your relationship. So how has that influenced your relationship?
It's very funny because when I look and I sit back and I look at the relationship that played out between Brian's parents and the impacts that had on him as a person and what he's brought to the table, plus he lived a whole life before he met me too. He was 33 when we got together. So he'd already had a long-term relationship as well. So, all of those patterns of behaviour come into things. So for me, when I look at all the female line of my family, it's all abandonment issues, all the way along. My nan's mum, my great-great-grandma, my great-grandma, my grandma, my mum, myself. I've experienced abandonment. And when I look at how I respond to Brian when we have disagreements and things like that, like I just seem to get this, oh, well, that's it, it's over. Like we're done. That's it. And he actually said that to me in the middle of a fight one day. He was like, why? Why is everything just like the end? That's it. We're all over, you know? And I go, I don't know, because you're an asshole, you know, and I don't want to hang out with you anymore and blah, 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 blah. But then I had to go and think about that. And I was like, well, probably because when the shit did hit the fan in all the previous relationships for the women in my line, that's what happened. They just, that was it. It was done. That was it. And then there's all this abandonment stuff that comes up. So I have to be aware of what I'm bringing to the table. And I don't know if you know, but I can't even remember what the word is called, but you were an egg within your grandma. That whole line. Yeah. So every physical, emotional, chemical or spiritual stress that your grandma felt, your mum was an egg within your grandma and you were an egg within your mum. So all of that comes through the lines, and it's just like that's in there somewhere, and it's for us to become aware of that stuff and to actually work through that. And I really feel like we really nearly came to the skids at the beginning of this year, end of last year. Like that was it. I was just like, ugh. But when I think about it, I go, well, that's 21 years. That's such a long time. Surely that 21 years is worth sitting here and investigating myself and going, what is it that I'm contributing to this right now? And for me, it's not been speaking up and speaking my truth. So when Brian has done things, because he's got some issues that he's working through, and out of respect to him, I won't share what they are, but the issues that he's working through, like I need to find compassion. Like I also need to have boundaries, and that's where things have blurred because I always kind of look to him and be like, well, he's so much older, he's got that much more life experience than me. He kind of knows this stuff. And I really deferred a lot to him in the early years. And I can see that came from my own insecurities, but it was also because I just didn't know myself. I thought I knew everything, but I really didn't.
No 21-year-old does.
No. Well, every 21 thinks they do, but they actually don't. So it really, for me now, I go, okay, for me to continue with our relationship, like I have to give myself the time and allow him to have his time and his space, but I have to own what I've done or not done, and that's connecting truly into how I feel about things and speaking of those things when I'm feeling them, not just brushing them under the carpet. So I was like, yeah, I could totally end the relationship at the end of last year, but I realised that if I did that, I would just be taking that whole set of unresolved things into the next thing that I did. And I don't want to do that because then you've got to unlearn and reset boundaries, blah, 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 blah. I may as well do that while I'm here with someone that I do genuinely love. We're just in a shit patch, well, we were. And that's what happens. Like we had these amazing first 5-10 years, and then it went brr, and then we came up higher, and then it went lower, and then it went higher again. But the spaces got further in between. So, yeah, I don't know where we get this idea that everything's going to be perfect. Who even thinks that? I totally did. So, yeah, it's just interesting when you really go on that path of realising that it's you, like you are 100% contributing, whether it be because you're allowing someone to have all the power in the relationship or you're overbearing in it. Like there's always one or the other. It's not very often that it's one person just holding firm and someone else having a psycho around them. You know, there's always a contribution there from both people. So I've always taken that on board, even in business. Like I got smashed last year, absolutely smashed in social media because I started a Facebook support group for other educators within Australia who were struggling through all the COVID stuff. And all I did was read out the government handouts every single day that they came through. I just read them out and decipher them. And there was a group of women that really didn't like what I was saying, which was funny because it was just what the government was
Not your
saying.
words.
Not my words at all, at all. So they just went on this social media rampage to just annihilate me and my business. And it all came to a head last year on my birthday. It was the worst birthday I think I've ever had in my life. And I just, I got up and I started cleaning and I was like, I just want them to be accountable. I just want them to be accountable. It's not fair and it's blah, 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 blah. And I had to look at myself and go, well, hang on a second. Where are you not being accountable in your life? Where are you not showing up? And I was like, oh, my health and my fitness. Fuck. So then, and because we're in a lockdown, I couldn't go and join the gym, but I psyched myself up for months now, or at that stage, months. And then as soon as January came, I was like, that's it. I joined in September, but I couldn't go until January because I was so ashamed. I was so embarrassed and all the rest of it. Anyway, I've been going since January to date and I've not missed one single session. The gym actually filmed me because they're doing 12-week challenges. So they filmed me because they watched how I show up consistently and, I put the work in. I am not there mucking around when I'm at the gym. I just smashed a goal a couple of weeks ago, 350 kilo leg press. And
that is a lot of weight.
Yeah. I'm stoked. I don't even know how much weight I've lost. I probably lost 3 dress sizes. And, so I took personal accountability. I really looked at that and I took that really awful, painful lesson that was just so nasty and uncalled for. And I actually used the juice in that to have a positive impact for myself. And so now, and I was like, well, once if I'm accountable and they're still going on, well, then I can take it further. And that's a whole other story. But what I got out of that was learning to go, well, hang on a second. If I want someone to be something else, where am I not meeting that in myself? Where am I not holding myself to that same standard? And I do that with a lot of the things that Brian and I go through too.
Victoria, that's amazing. And there's so many things that I want to just honour and applaud you for, the level of self-awareness, the level of willingness to take accountability, but not just take that accountability, then you actually turned it into thoughts, feelings and actions. Then you had consistency and cadence around those actions, and then you've been getting rewards for that. And I just thank you so much for sharing that with us. And it's hard and it's scary, and exercising that muscle of self-awareness and taking on feedback is hard, and well done.
Mate, I get so sick of myself.
Yeah. I think that's the thing, isn't it? Shit doesn't really change until you get sick of your own shit.
Yeah.
And then there's periods where I'll just be going along and then I'm like, oh, far out, there's another bloody lesson here. For goodness sake, when am I ever just going to get to be? When am I ever just gonna, it's just this constant, but that's what life is. And for me, that's where the juice of life is. And it's that if you're not learning, you're stagnant. If you're stagnant, you die. I'm not ready to die. There's so much in life that's left to live. So thank you.
Yeah. Can I ask you, how did you become that self-aware? What happened? There had to be a lightning bolt or another download while on the beach with your friend. How did you start this perspective shifting?
I think I've always had a side of me that's very connected spiritually. When I was a lot younger and I used to drink and do things that young kids did, there was always this part of me that was and I suppose you might call it my conscience, but there was always this part of me that was nah, you've had enough now. Just cut it out. So I've always had this really strong connection to the all, for want of a better word. But that definitely solidified through the network chiropractic work that we've done for the last 16 years. And it's not that I'm there every week or anything like that now. In the beginning I was, because I had so much shit. Oh my God. I was argumentative and I just forced myself on everybody. I was so opinionated. I could never be wrong. I just I look back at how I was and I was just like, far out, you're your father. So, so working through that and really going, hang on, I don't want to be like that. I'm striving to, it's not even a place. I worked it out the other week that, I was always looking for these goals. When I get there, I'll feel this. When I hit that, I'll do this. But actually that what I've been searching for is this contentment. And I think the older I get, the easier it is for me to find that contentment. Once I get that contentment, then I go, okay, I'm content with that now and I feel happy in that. I still want to strive for more. Like, what's the next? Because I'm undiagnosed inattentive ADHD as well. So that's only been in the last 12 months too.
Did TikTok diagnose you? I feel like that's a really common thing that adults are like realizing, oh my gosh, I think I might have this, or definitely some behaviors that align with that. And I think I don't know, maybe it's just the evolution of self-awareness that you go, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh.
I think a lot, like personally, screens and devices have so much to contribute to that lack of focus and that instantaneous gratification. Like, I see it in the children that we work with. The children that watch a lot of TV, they've forgotten how to play. They don't know how to play. They don't know how to access their internal dialogue, and they don't know how to use their imagination. They will go from one box to another, tip everything out, and then be like, well, what now? And you can see they're wired. They are wired, and I know for myself, I used to read before I go to bed, and then Brian whinged because the light would keep him up. And so I bought him a mask and he was like, are you kidding me? I'm not wearing that. So then I got on my phone and I'd start being on my phone before bed. So for me, like, that has contributed massively to my lack of focus, and it's just always there. It's like this addiction and it's so insidious. So I think a lot of people, whilst there are definitely, and I definitely have mega traits of ADHD, hormonal changes and stress, the life that my life has become in the last 12 months because of all the COVID stuff, has just exacerbated the skill set that I had to manage and hide all that stuff, has completely been blown to smithereens. And there's I sit in an office and work on my own all day, and I'm useless at it. Like, fucking terrible. I need other stimulation, because I can be tuning into what they're doing but doing my work at the same time. I don't have that now. So it becomes really obvious when I'm on my own. And some people are the complete opposite.
That's me. I'm the opposite. Nate's been working from home and my productivity's definitely taken a hit because I've got this other person, whereas I used to be great in my little silo.
Yeah.
Love you. Yeah. So, Victoria, this has been such a beautiful chat. Thank you so much for letting us take a peek behind your relationship and your relationship with yourself and some of the things that you've overcome as a couple. But what I would love to know is, maybe this is a twofold question. What do you do now to continue dating yourself? And what do you continue doing in your relationship to keep dating Brian?
Dating myself, I never thought I'd say this, but I froth at getting up at 5 o'clock and going to the gym. And because I just love outlifting the guys. At the gym, I'm so competitive. So competitive.
360, here you come.
Yeah, fully. Like, one of the big buff dudes come and high fist bumped me the other day. I was like, yes, I made it. Yay.
Yes.
Yeah. So that I am just loving that at the moment, and then going for walks and just using my body and being really physical in my body. I just love that. So that's what I do to date myself, and gold class movies. I love just sneaking off to the movies. Being an entrepreneur and running my own business means that I go, oh, Channing Tatum movie out, I'm there. So I always go to the movies by myself, and I'll go out for lunch by myself, and I love hanging out by myself now. And to date Brian loves kayaking. I had not an interest at all in kayaking and fishing, but I will go with him and I'll make a beautiful picnic lunch, you know, like handmade pies and like the works. It's pretty smick. And yeah, so we'll take that and we'll hang out and we'll go and do that together. Or we often just sit out the front and look at the garden because he loves talking about his garden and I love the garden too. I sit here in my office and I look out at it. So we will sit and just spend time together. And it's funny when things start to hit the skids and I look back on it, I go, oh, we didn't have breakfast together. We're just so busy, you know, and I'm so busy. And so, yeah, for us, it's really spending time together, quality time where there's no agenda and there's no time frame on it. It's not like, I've got to go in half an hour and get the kids, you know, like we're coming into empty nesters soon. So we're about to start proper dating again as a couple. So our daughter just got her license so she can drive herself to work. It's so good.
Yeah, and she can come pick you up.
Yes.
I love that.
Amazing.
And I think I really like the emphasis on like device-free time too, that it's in the garden or out kayaking or picnicking. Yeah, I think it's really beautiful. Victoria, thank you so much. Nathan and I talk about being the change and taking accountability for yourself and the life that you're creating for yourself and your partner. And you talked a lot about that today, about that radical responsibility and self-awareness. But we also want to be the change that we want to see in the world. So to say thank you, we've provided a month's worth of early childhood education to a classroom in Kenya, which we thought was perfect for you. So thank you so much for making that possible. We've done that with our partnership with Buy One, Give One.
That's amazing. Thank you. That's a cause very, very dear to my heart for sure. Thank you very much. It's been a great. This is my first podcast, so it's been so much fun.
Yeah. Well done. You've done great.
Amazing. So, Victoria, if people want to connect with you or learn a little bit more about what you do, how should they do that?
They can find me on Instagram at Big Hearted Education and also on Facebook at Big Hearted Education. So that's where we do all of our content for educators, courses and planners and guides and free resources and things like that. So, yeah, you can catch me over there.
Amazing.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. It's great fun.
Thanks heaps for joining us. If you love what we're doing here and want more, subscribe to the Date Forever podcast to make sure you never miss an ep. Come and hang out with us and other awesome couples who are fueling up their relationships in the Thriving Couples Collective Facebook group, or check us out at fuelcollective.com.au. Until next time, keep on dating, because better relationships equal a better world.